on the sheriff budget issue. We will have public comments, privilege of the floor on that after we get through this presentation. If there is anyone that would like to comment on it, Cassandra has a sign-up sheet. Please sign up on that, and we will call your name in order, but you will be limited to 3 minutes. If there are people out here that are from a group, an ATV group, I would appreciate it if you would pick one spokesman rather than everyone trying to get up and make the same statement. So with that, I'll turn this over to the county manager, and we'll have a little PowerPoint display. Thanks.
Okay. So we know probably a lot of people are here to talk about what's going on with the Sheriff's Department budget, so we figured before we got into all that, let's run through the numbers and everyone can see where we currently stand. So we're going to go over budget trends over the last 5 years. We might talk a little bit about the budget process, go over 2019 year-to-date spending, and then recreation patrol. Budget trends. So one of the misconceptions that's been put out there is that the sheriff's budget was cut this year. That is simply not the case. In fact, the sheriff's budget has increased consistently every year, from $2.8 million for road patrol in 2015 to now they're at almost $3.3 million. On the jail side, they were at almost $2 million in 2015. Today they're at $2.3 million. So in terms of commitment and financial commitment to the Sheriff's Department, the board has done well over the years to increase that commitment and has certainly not cut anything. In terms of percent increases, this is always important in New York State because we live under the 2% tax cap. So understanding how we're handling spending every year is critical to how your property taxes look when we get done with the budget. What you can see here is you've got the county total in green. You've got road patrol dispatch in light green and jail in orange. Each year, this is year over year. So from 15 to 16, the county overall budget went down 1%. Road patrol has gone down 1%. And jail that year in 2016 went up 10%. So you can kind of follow those trends all the way through. Some years have been better than others. We've cut sometimes, we've added sometimes. That's how it goes with departments. But over the 5-year total of the, since 2015, the county's overall spending, every department all included, has gone up 8%. And you can see the road patrol and county jail has gone up 16% over that period. So double the rate of increase as the rest of the county departments and county spending in total.
Contract negotiation.
Staffing trends. We did have a professional group come in 2017 and give us analysis on the staffing at the jail. To the sheriff's credit and the undersheriff, the staffing report came back pretty accurate to what they were saying at the time. However, we have tried to react to that report and try to rectify some of the issues that were addressed at that time. One of the issues that the report looked at was overtime. The report says, while the department will never eliminate all overtime coverage, hiring additional staff would likely reduce the amount of overtime. They also said it is possible that the best solution may be a blended approach, hiring a few more full-time employees and using part-time employees to cover the remaining needs. So since that time of the report in 2017, the Board of Legislators has approved the increase of 10 total positions, 1 investigator, 4 corrections officers, 3 dispatchers, and 2 school resource officers. We also have left open, we have not eliminated any of the part-time positions, 6 road patrol, 7 corrections officers, and 3 dispatch. So we've tried to follow that report where, adding some positions to take the pressure off from the overtime, but also allowing a good mix of part-timers to fill in. As you can see, the full, 5-year trend here goes back. We had 48 total FTEs, full-time equivalents, at the Sheriff's Department in 2016. Today, in 2019, we have 58 full-time equivalents at the Sheriff's Department. So the commitment from the Board of Legislators to respond to the Bonadio report, we feel has been made. So one thing that has been talked about a little bit in the media is the 2019 budget process. I don't think we want to get too far into the weeds on this, but I just thought we would show how we handled each of the different sub-departments at the Sheriff's Office. Road Patrol, what you'll notice here is that there was a significant increase, 5%, in the 2019 adopted to 2018. The reason for that is for the bargaining units. We settled a 3-year contract, and just like we settled the CSEA and the corrections officer contract, we properly accounted for those increases in the budget. We've never had a problem in all of the years of Lewis County budgeting understanding what was negotiated, reading the contract, and making sure that we appropriately put the right line item in for regular pay. Overtime pay, you'll notice, was actually increased from $30,000 to $40,000. So that was something that the sheriff requested. We saw a need last year and tried to address it the best we could by increasing it by 33% year over year. We did decrease temp pay, and the reason for that is we moved some of those resources over to Recreation Department, which we'll get to in a minute. Total increase in road patrol staffing is 5.2% year over year. Again, that's an environment with a 2% tax cut. Jail, similar process, except for here, you'll see an even bigger jump, 21.3% in regular pay. That's because we added 4 full-time corrections officers, okay? With those full-time corrections officers, we also added the necessary increases for the union contract, which was finalized last year. With the additional 4 corrections officers, we felt that overtime should be reduced, as we kind of, referencing that Bonadio report, that when you add full-time employees, the tendency for overtime goes down. But we also understood that we wanted that good mix of part-timers and full-timers, so even though it was not requested, we did add $20,000 for part-timers so that we can still fill those in as needed. Recreation budget, here's where you'll really see the county's commitment, and I think if you went back even further to probably 2013 or 14, you'll see that we've increased even more over, than this 106%, but 106%, a doubling of the budget in 1 year is not something that happens often in local government. So it shows that we've tried to show a commitment to recreation patrol, and you'll see that that some of that overtime has been brought down here, because we do know that a lot of the rec patrol that happens in the county is overtime from the deputies. We know that, so we try to recognize that by really increasing the overtime pay for recreation patrol. Dispatch, we also added, now I have a brain cramp, 2 or 3? 3. We added 3 dispatchers last year. So you'll see the same thing as the jail, a 31.8% increase over that time. And we did give similar situation. We reduced the overtime pay, but we also gave extra for temp, because we want those part-timers to fill in and balance the load, so we're not using too much overtime. School resource officer, obviously we added another one last year, but we now have 2 school resource officers, one at Harrisville, one at South Louis, and those officers are not completely paid for by the school districts, but the school districts do largely offset those expenses to the county. So now we talk about year-to-date spending, that, kind of the reason why we're at the point that we're at today. Regular pay is about on pace. That should be. We've added 4, this is for road patrol. We accounted for the union increase. It's about on pace where it needs to be. Overtime and temp, however, have not kept pace and are on pace to far exceed the given budgets that we've outlaid previously. Jail, similar situation. We added the 4 new corrections officers. Those positions are more or less on pace. However, the overtime pay has continued to increase, and the temp pay, which if you recall, the requested budget was 0, we at least gave 20, has exceeded the yearly amount. So this is what they were supposed to spend or have for the whole year. This is what we've spent already so far in June. Recreation, this is where you saw the 106% increase year over year, where we really tried to put more resources into this department. Regular pay, you can see kind of what's been used so far this year. There is still some money left that can be utilized. And dispatch, similar situation. School resource officer, there's nothing really there. That's completely on target, as expected. Year-to-date overtime, we don't really need to get into this, but some of the things that we're hearing is about transport and sick coverage and constant watch. We need to spend more time analyzing that data. I completely agree. This is what we were able to get from our side of the time entry system. Okay, this is what we were able to gather, but we need to spend more time. We need to get with the Sheriff's Department and understand what we can do to curb these trends. This was for the jail, overtime so far. And for road patrol and dispatch, similar situation, something where, management from the county and the Sheriff's Office need to get together and try to understand these trends and figure out what we can do to try to keep them under control. Recreation Patrol, which is probably why everybody's here, a refresh of where that budget currently stands. There is some slack to be spent throughout the rest of the year. In fact, about half of it's gone. We're about halfway through the year, so we're doing okay on that front. But a couple, just to dive down a little bit deeper on this. Reimbursable costs. The state of New York will reimburse $37,500 for snowmobile patrol. So that's when you guys register your snowmobiles with the state. That money goes into a pot, gets kicked back out to localities for patrol coverage and safety. So that is a revenue that we expect in our budget. Same thing with Naval Patrol, similar situation. We actually have, the state will give up to $250,000 for Naval Patrol. I'm imagining some of the counties down, in Long Island might use that much, but up here, $10,000 is all we budgeted as a reimbursement for that. And then the ATV Patrol is a revenue line item. Again, when you register your ATVs, you pay the registration. That's not where it comes from?
No, it comes completely from the off-road permits. The Lewis County off-road permits, that's the only place it comes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The permits you put on your
your
four.
registration with New
Oh,
York State.
no. Wait, yes. When you buy, I'm sorry, wrong word. When you purchase your permit from Jackie's office, that money is transferred. Some of it's used to build trails. Some of it's transferred over to the Sheriff's Department to provide patrols out on the trail system. We also have, so these are revenues that we are expecting to receive. So if we don't do the work to get those reimbursements, we won't see those revenues come back into the budget. School resource officer, like I said before, we have 2. Those salaries are paid for by the schools, not completely, but partially paid for by the schools. So, using those folks for rec patrol, which was pretty well established through the minutes when the board, looked to approve those 2 positions, was that during the winter break and during the summer months, those 2 positions would be used for recreation patrol. That's kind of what the deal was if you go back and look at the minutes during that time. So having those folks on staff now, there would be no additional budgetary cost to having them doing rec patrol because most of their costs are already paid for by the schools. And that's it. So Any
Brian,
questions,
you're
comments?
constructing now, these 2 full-time deputies have to go out in both of those Parks and Recs individuals, so there is overtime occurrence with that.
What's that, Sheriff? I'm sorry.
2 full-time deputies have to go out to the Parks and Recs people, so there is overtime occurrence with that.
Right.
Yeah. Let me show you.
So, Ryan, I have a question before we open it up to the public. On the road patrol, there was 11.3% overtime for the road patrol for recreation. Okay, and then the next slide, it showed what we've been spending at recreation. Has that overtime that was spent on the road patrol side towards rec, is that reflected in the cost of the rec? The way I see it, that it's going being counted against the road patrol and it's not showing up on the rec part.
Nope.
Okay.
Road
Just to
patrol.
clear it up if someone might have seen it the way I do.
What we probably should have said is sheriff deputies, not corrections officers. So the deputies were being used during those
Okay.
instances at rec patrol and were charged to those lines.
Okay. Because you had it was underneath the sheriff, the road patrol, separate from the rec. That's why I was wondering. Okay.
Okay, so now we'll open it up for general privilege of the floor. Is there anyone here that would like to discuss an issue other than the rec patrol and sheriff's department issue? Do we have anything else? If not, we'll move on to a list of people that would like to speak with regard to that. So first on the list is Mike Levicker. Would you come up front, please, and state your name for the record? And
My name is Mike Liverger, and I'd like to thank everybody. That was a good PowerPoint presentation there, Brian. That was good. Been deputy for your county for 42 years, and I'd like to just mention a few facts about the recreation program, which I've been involved with since it started in, I think it's 1992, 91, I'm not 100% sure. The boat patrol actually started way back in the 1960s, and the sled patrol started in 91, 92. And the ATV patrol started in the late 1990s on a very small scale. And back at that time, I can tell you, I was really involved in it. The budget program was for boats and snowmobiles, but was never, ATVs were never included in that budget program back going 10, 15 years. Over the course of time, we obtained 2 free boats. They got a $75,000 2015 Boston Whaler. That's on a loaner program from the Albany Marine Office. We can use that forever until the end of it, or we can give it back anytime. Okay, that's a program that they have out for different counties. We got a $25,000 2009 Triumph Bayliner. It's a 4-stroke engine, runs really good. That's up at Rainham, and that was obtained through Ray Meyer as a member item back in 2009, 2008 it kind of started. So that's $100,000 right there you got. At that point in time, our boats were, it was an embarrassment to be out there. Totally an embarrassment. Personally, myself and Mike Tabalt, we worked on this. We got these $100,000 free boats for you. Free docking space. Here's another added thing that's not even in your budget. For the last 8 years, we were, we'll figure $400 a dock a boat at a dock. That's about the average price. So for 8 years, 2 lakes, totals about $6,400 for free dock space, a boathouse to use, and a storage shed. So that's stuff you guys don't even have to budget in. So that equals about $106,000 in $400 cash that you don't have to budget. The county promotes tourism to our backyard. It's your venture, so we need to settle this issue that's going on. We actually need to be doing more than what we're doing. Patrolling the lakes is a 7-day operation, not just a few days a week. It depends on the weather. This morning it rained out, yeah, nobody's going to be out. Now it's hot and muggy out, people are going to be out. All the camps are rented out for the next 2 months at Bradenham and Bonaparte. people are here. Our equipment budget, I need to be wrong in this, but right down to like $100. We have no money to service our snowmobiles, our ATVs, or our boats. I could be wrong in that, but I don't think I am. Our helmets all need to be replaced before winter comes. We teach helmet safety to the kids in schools, so we should follow the same practice that we teach. At some time in these areas that require patrols, we'll have to start helping out the county for policing. County Fair, Snort Run, Cream Cheese, maybe both lakes, Diane and Greg, the lake associations are going to maybe have to start putting in some of this. That's what I truly believe. If you want to really understand, I think you guys do a little bit, the reimbursement for snowmobile and marine, contact the sheriff. I did it for 30 years, all the paperwork. I know the whole process. We sit down and figure out, I think you're on the right track, but we just got to maybe explain a little bit more to you. JCC needed $2 million more. When I went over budget, that wasn't a problem, okay? But we need to get this issue settled. We need to get back on track because people are here and there's no protection out there on the trails, the waters. So it's, we're putting people's lives at risk and we just need to somehow get this going and settle it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Marilyn Patterson.
Good evening. Nice presentation, Brian. Thank you very much for that. I wasn't aware of so much how your budget is working or not working. I'm a supervisor for the town of Gregg. I've been there. This is my 8th year. And I've had to write a budget every year, staying under the 2%, so I know exactly what you guys are going through. And ladies, I know. Between your salaries with the unions, your health insurance, equipment, gasoline, that takes up the majority of our budgets before we do anything else. Very hard to project. And then you've got the state, Mr. Como cutting chips and everything else. I think everybody's aware of what we're being cut, the AIM program. But we've been encouraged, our towns have been encouraged to open ATV trails, snowmobile trails. Town of Gregg has a lake, well, 2 lakes that Chases Lake too. We've got horses, kayaking, canoes, jet skis. We just opened a dirt track. And now we're looking at maybe no patrol. I mean, this is serious. And I don't know what your fix is. I just know that in my little town where I am, I've had to work with people and write grants. There's money out there to be had, but we need somebody that's willing to write grants. I've written grants through North Pratt for my swim program at South Louis for the last 10 years. I wrote a grant for the playground, the town park, got $10,000 to build that park. It doesn't take a rocket scientist. If you know where the money is. I had to teach myself. I wasn't educated through the college or anything. And another place is Lewis County Youth Program. I've worked with Penny every year for the last 10 years, getting money for our program. It's not easy. I grew up on Bradenham Lake from the age of 2 until I got married. Mom and Dad had a camp there. We always had patrol on that lake. And I'll tell you what, if anybody wonders what we need patrol, go up on 4th of July and check out that lake. Because it is going to be crazy. And we didn't have jet skis back when I was a kid. We had rowboats, little motor on the back, a couple cruisers, but that's about it. And now it is just crazy. And then you add the alcohol, and the other problem with this county is drugs. In the town of Craig is one of the biggest ones for meth right now, and I think my sheriff here can attest to that, because a program I went to training for health and safety and drugs, the first one on the chart was the town of Gregg. You can't pick up a can alongside the road because there's meth in it. And I don't know how many times my road superintendent has pointed it out. I'm just concerned for the safety of our citizens, and I know you guys are too. It's not that you don't care. It's how we're going to solve the problem. And I think the biggest thing right now that may help more than anything is grant writing. And it may take care of the guy up on Birmingham Lake. You know, you get a senior in college that's criminal justice, and he needs something to do for the summer. What a perfect program that would be. You know, talk to these people on the lake associations, and see they did that with the boat wash up in Birmingham. So, I mean, it's a lot of legwork. It really is, and I know you guys will do it, and ladies, and I wish you all luck, but I just felt as though I needed to come and talk to you and share with you what I see from our little town. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. Diane Miller.
Good afternoon. Due to the overwhelming expenditures, we are slated with finding the whole recreation program being axed. The division we are all aware of provides services on our waterways and trail systems, but it's year-round. Without this service, it has already been noted on social media and the surrounding areas that you don't bring attention to yourself, you'll be okay. Basically, giving full string to doing whatever you please. Without the thought of police presence enforcing the law, it does not dissuade illegal actions. When there's no presence, who is there to enforce watercraft, snowmobile, and ATV compliance? There was somebody asking to rent a jet ski that was coming up to Birmingham. Had no clue that you had to have a boater safety course in order to properly operate that on a body of water in this area, actually in New York State. I see many posts of people wanting to come here to the area for recreational purposes. But if it's unsafe, are those families still going to come to this county and spend their dollars? Or are they going to go elsewhere? We never want to put our families in harm's way, and the removal of these patrols, we're just doing that. Please let us find the necessary monies to cover this unexpected cost of keeping us safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Hyman.
Thank you very much for letting me speak to you folks. I'm a representative, I'm a landowner at Branningham. I'm also a landowner in Martinsburg on Centerville Road. So I see both the need for water safety and ATV safety or snow sleds. Today, for example, after the brief rain we had at least 4, if not 5 jet skis out there playing tag, raising hell, excuse me, but they were very close to each other. One was dragging a tube, not very safe. We also had several pontoon boats out, we had water skiers out. We need some eyes looking at what these folks are doing to make sure. First example, we've got several pontoon boats. I haven't seen them yet this year, but I've seen some small, about 14-foot pontoon boats with 15 people on them. And I'm talking about just barely above water level. People just don't think. They don't have a life preserver for each person. This has to be, sometimes there has to be Big Brother looking in. I've been on Branningham since 1946. Been a landowner since 74. And we need police supervision. On the ATV side, we need it up at Branningham, I'll tell you. We have kids, mainly kids flying around riding doubles when they're not equipped for doubles. On Centerville Road, where I've got property, it's a high-speed lane there. I've not seen any accidents. However, I do know in the snow sled season, one lad was killed right at the gate to one of my wind turbines, and he went off the road and into a tree. So there has to be, you can't stop everything. Accidents will happen. But by having supervision around, the thought in the, let's call it the participant's mind, they will act a little bit more with reason. And that's where I think we really need it at Branningham. We have, during the summer months, I mean, they're out on the water 7:30 in the morning and sometimes 10 o'clock at night. So we really need the police supervision there. I understand you can't be there all the time, but we're also a very, I believe, significant portion of your tax funding. We pay pretty good dollars. I pay more for my property at Branningham than I do for my house outside of Chicago. Thank you, folks. Hope you can give us some help.
Thank you. Mary Brown.
Thank you for all your hard work, and thank you, Sheriff, for all your hard work. I'm on Branningham as well. I'm a owner of property. I was actually born in Marlville, so I've been here a long time. I have always respected the sheriff and anybody who's patrolled our land. What I've seen in Branningham over the last 5 years, though, is a little shocking. We have fewer and fewer visits because the troops are just spread too thin. We have more renters, and that's just the facts of life. People can't go spend all summer there like they used to, so they need to get the revenue to help pay their taxes. We have people coming in with very large boats. It didn't used to be a large boat lake. I don't know if you noticed the large boats. There was an ocean liner out there last year. The jet skis, I got almost sideswiped by a jet ski today with careless behavior. If somebody doesn't just show their face as authority, a couple hours a day takes the temperature down drastically. I see it every summer. When I see that no one's there, people say, hey, nobody's been here all week. Let's stay out on the lake until 11 o'clock at night drinking in party barges with no lights on. That's not good. Somebody's going to get hurt. I see floating platforms out in the middle of the lake at 10 o'clock in the morning because somebody's pontoon boat has taken out their floating swim raft. That's going to happen, and somebody's going to get hurt the next time. They didn't, this time that hasn't happened. So I encourage some solution. I know some places have auxiliary patrols that they can use the boat, the sheriff's boat, and go out and just be a presence. I don't know if that's a feasible solution here, but I'm encouraged to ask for more presence, not take away presence. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank everyone for their comments. I have a couple thoughts that I'd like to share. I think the general consensus here is that we all would like to see more rec patrol. I think the legislators agree with that. We budgeted the full request for rec patrol. We actually even increased it $10,000 over last year. There is money in that account that has not been expended yet. So I think, the argument here is we're attempting to use that money that's remaining in that account to cover other shortfalls. So hopefully we can have further discussions on it and come to an agreement that makes everybody happier, if not completely happy. So, thank you.
And I do agree with what Larry just said. I mean, it's kind of a balancing act. Our intentions are covering everything, but not maybe covering it perfect. And maybe like one of the people said there, is showing up randomly for 2 hours just for presence. I mean, and I know the sheriff's wanting to do it perfectly, and I understand that. But when we put our budget together, and somebody else pointed out, roughly 90% of what we raise in taxes from everybody is mandated items. It leaves us about 10% to take care of the rest of the stuff. And if we are trying to stay in the tax cap, and I don't think anybody wants more and more tax increases. So it's kind of a balancing act, and hopefully the sheriff can figure out some way. He might be able to balance it, and a lot of things may not be perfect, but it kind of works for everybody. So our intentions is we've always put recreation in, and we'd like it to continue. It may not be perfect. So we'll do what we can. Thank you.
We'll move on. At this point, is there anyone here that would like to comment on providing for installment payment on real property taxes, town and county taxes in Lewis County? If not, we will close that public hearing at this point.
So as of right now, you're saying that we'll have to come back to the drawing board another time then to get this resolved for our funding? In other words, will we have to wait till next month's meeting to try to get something done, or can we get together and figure out where we can get some funding to continue on?
We have always been willing, to have discussion on that anytime that, you would like to have it.
Well, I've been open anytime, 24/7. I've got my office, my cell phone, my residence. I've come up and had meetings with you. I'm in meetings now again here today, last month. Here we are. These people are waiting for an answer. They're waiting for me to put recreation patrol out there. If I don't have the funding to do it, I cannot do it.
You
So I'm
have
saying,
the
can we
funding.
go through right now?
Go ahead.
So, Sheriff, with all due respect here, by you not doing any rec patrol, all that money that's available for you to get for revenue isn't coming in. So I don't understand where you don't have the funding to do it. Up front, you might not, but you're going to get reimbursed for that. Even if it comes in next year, it still makes you whole. So with that part, the $100,000 that you're projected to be over, and I'm just going to give you a quick look at what we have available for monies, okay? And we don't know what our sales tax revenue is going to be. Right now in contingency, we have $96,000, or 189 in contingency. Special legislative contingency, we only have 96. Your $100,000 that you're projected to be over is going to take half of that, and that's providing we don't have any more issues. So we did not ask you to get rid of the rec patrol. We gave you 2 resource officers. We agreed on that because the understanding was when they were off on vacations in summers that they were going to do a rec patrol, which when they do it is reimbursable. You got $10,000 in one pot, and what were the other $20,000 in the other 2 pots to take from. So that's all revenue you're not going to get. That's going to make your budget gap even larger if you don't do them patrols and get that money.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
So let me ask you, what is
this also? You can't put one man on a boat. If anybody knows anything about New York State boating law and patrols, you'll find the liability behind that. I've sent 4 people from my agency in the last couple of years. Finally, we had the funding, we had the training available, we had the manpower. We sent them out to training, so professionally trained, be certified, so that you, as a county, wouldn't get sued for people I was putting out there before that weren't trained in. They require 2 people. No one man can patrol, take a boat, hold alongside another boat, hang on to that boat, ask for identification, put anybody, even in custody if need be, for the DWI. Can't do it. Cannot do it safely at all.
You've got 2 RSOs that are paid for.
They are not paid for, sir, for the full time. They're paid for the school.
They were paid for the school, and the reason we agreed to hire them is they were going to be recreation when they were ours.
When they're available to do it, that's right.
Well, they're available
we don't
in
have
the
the money to be able
summer.
to pay for them right now. I don't have that. I can't put 2 other people with them.
The school's already paid for it.
See,
I'm not giving you a hard time, I'm just looking for a solution.
I understand, but
The thing is, if you use those now, you can go to both lakes and you can still do some of the recreation patrol. May not be perfect, but everybody gets a little bit of something instead of saying you're not doing it just to punish us. What you're doing is punishing those people
absolutely not,
out there
sir.
by
Absolutely
pulling.
not. I'm not doing to punish anybody.
Well-
What I'm doing, sir, is being responsible, as I was asked by my legislative board and my county manager, to find the money to cover the overtime in the jail, which is mandated, sir. You are correct. I don't have control of that. That comes out of Albany again.
Now,
So
what
that's what I'm doing. So I found so I can have the extra money there if we needed to cover that overtime. I asked for $179,000 last year's budget. It's simple. I mean, there's nothing more to really discuss and, make all this rhetoric and all these slideshows and presentations. You took $179 away from my budget. If I had that, we'd be fine today. But I don't.
Okay, so with that being said though, Sheriff, in all due respect, I understand that you're trying to put money in your budget to do things as good as you can do it to the best of your ability, because that's what the public, we all deserve that. I understand that. But if every department comes in here throughout the county, whether it's DSS, whether it's probation or anything, and say, well, this is what we want and you have to give it to us, oh my God, we'd be at a 10% increase. We can't afford that. Our taxpayers can't afford that now. So what we do with you, the same as everyone else, is we ask you to do the best with what we give you, okay? And I believe that you did that. I understand the jail part. I work there, you know that. I understand where the extra costs are coming from. Giving the four full-time employees didn't work out. By giving the drug force, I brought it up when Leanne brought it up. The additional cost.
Nobody gave me the drug task force. Remember? I came in here and told you people I started. I did. Without me funding.
We filled positions for that.
I took people away from other positions because it was a crisis.
That's right.
County. And it was terrible to keep on watching the district attorney come in here and basically pour our heart out to everybody and not get funded for that. I had the people to do it at the time, which I took away from somewhere else. So there again is to show that I've taken from other places to do a job that needs to be funded.
And you're
How much
doing a
more
great
am I
job,
going to keep on taking away from my department and other areas to cover everything? Can't be done, gentlemen. I've been asking for this for 8 years. It's catch-up time. We're there now.
So what I'm
Next year is going to be probably even worse if we don't do something now.
Well, I see, I'm going to disagree with you that because with the no bail, you're not going to have the people in jail. You're not going to have the overtime with the no bail.
That's what you think. Don't be fooled by Albany. Well, no, you know what? You've all been fooled by Albany. What can I say?
And I will promise you, like I said before, we'll work with you. But it's also nice to be able, instead of reading in the paper why you're over on certain things and a little heads up before, it's not that we won't, but you really never gives justification for being over and overtime. It's like none of
I
our
certainly have,
business.
sir. I've done, I
You've
present the
never
budget
come
every
in.
year, I report to you guys. Every year
You've
we've done.
never
I've
come
done
in
and
and
talked for the
told us
last
about
8
that.
years, Jerry. I come here in meetings that we have, our committee meetings. What do I get told? Try to work within your budget. We'll talk about this later. We'll find next time. I talked to the county manager at length, and the county manager before that, and the county manager before that, legislators before that. The people in this county are basically getting tired of hearing where their tax dollars are going and not going. Hold on for a minute. And it's us guys and department heads that are left up here to be kicked around. Or turn around like this and wonder, what are we doing? How can I answer these people? This is what I'm answering. I'm trying to do the best that I can. My people have done above and beyond what they can for the amount of money that's given to our agency to make it run with it. We've been responsible with it too. You're not going to drive 100 miles on 5 gallons of gas. That's what you're asking from everybody. Not my office, every office in this county, except, and I'm going to go there, and I'm sorry, I was asked not to, that hospital gets what it needs, carte blanche.
Yes.
Carte blanche.
Yes.
We suffer because of that.
Okay, so
Every other department
I'm going to interrupt you there,
Go
Sheriff.
ahead.
So let's take a look at the big picture with the hospital, all right? Yes, we do set money aside just in case. They've been in the black for how many years now? I do believe 3 years.
Yes.
We were in the red when we first come, okay? So take that hospital away, close it, and see what you got left in the county. Take all them good jobs away from here and everything. The tax money that doesn't come in, the real estate that goes, because them people, 300 and some people don't have a job.
No,
Look at the amount of money that doesn't come in here.
Right, the
And
hospital
you think your budget is tight now,
That
Sheriff?
hospital
It's
won't
going to get
close.
tighter.
That hospital won't close. We know it. You all know it.
You don't know that.
Yes, we do.
You know that.
Yes, we do.
You don't have a globe.
The
No more than I do.
Bottom line,
Yeah, I do.
if it
But I can tell you
is-
this. You can say it about the hospital, but if you don't have public safety in the community, that's going to go. let's really look at this about. Public safety.
So what you're saying to us is give you everything you want and to hell with everyone else.
Did I say that? No, I did not. I'm asking for work.
Yes, you are.
When you pulled recreation from these people, what it was is you brought them in there, cram it down our throat. And the bottom line is, you can provide it if you
Hold on for a
want.
second, hold on for a second.
You're in charge
Excuse me,
of
sir.
that
Excuse me.
jail.
Anybody here tonight, did I contact any of you to come here tonight, me personally?
No, one of your other people over there. And when
Okay.
you pulled recreation,
Point being is you
the
can't say
bottom
that.
line, you can provide a certain amount of recreation with your budget just the way it is, if you choose to. And we'll work with you. I'll tell you that. I've told you before.
Well, then, you know what then? Then we don't need, we don't work with me. We already have had these discussions. The bottom line is, are we gonna fund the agency tonight? Am I have to come back again in the middle of next month and wait till August to get funded? What are we gonna do?
Let's hold it right there. There's two things that we have established. One, there's money in the rec budget now that you could use on recreation. Is that
No, we're
correct?
not. No, sir. No,
Just, there was just a slide up there that there's over $28,000
Where'd it go?
in the rec fund.
Where to
You
go?
are attempting to use that money to balance overages elsewhere.
That's what I was asked to do.
Is that
I
correct?
was asked to do that,
Okay.
correct, Mr. Manager?
Not exactly by pulling Recreation Patrol.
Where'd you like me to get it from then?
Oh, no, I do believe the term was frivolous spending, so like with your rifles and equipment that you might not necessarily need.
The direction from my
Frivolous
office,
spending?
hold on. The direction from my office was very clear. It was only discretionary items that we would want to hold, not deny the purchase of, hold until the fourth quarter when we could see how the rest of the budget was going to shake out. That was the directive. And that's it. That's all the communication from my office directly has been.
I used the wrong word, Sheriff, I'm sorry for that. I didn't mean frivolous.
I know you did, Brian, don't worry.
So sorry about that.
And I think you're doing an excellent job. You're doing everything. It's just somehow we got to make everything with the amount of money there is. It's not, you know. And I see where you're coming from, the hospital, and I've told you before, they've turned around. We're hoping that. But if it gets to the point they were into us before, they will not survive at where we got to increase taxes 10 and 15% to keep them afloat.
Look,
That's the bottom line.
Listen, I'm not trying to pick apart the good people who work there and everything else. This is it. I've been there 16 years. I was part of Parks and Rec Patrol. I remember getting a phone call from my boss then, at the time, says, Parks and Rec is out. Why is that? Why is that, Sheriff Table? Didn't have the funding. They told me I have to find it someplace else. You know, why? 16 years. When are we going to start funding what we need to do the right way? Not just okay, like you see the commercials say, you want to take your brakes to a muffler specialist? I mean, that's what I want to do. You know, I can turn around and put any kid out in the lake with a boat? No, I certainly cannot do that. Can't do it. You can't put a regular civilian person. It is law enforcement.
I agree with there, but we've always put money in there, whether you could get two or that, and, you know, you didn't do it. We never worked enough hours, even when we had money in there, to collect on what we could collect on, because we never worked enough hours. And it wasn't because of that. So now we're just starting back in where we put enough time in and we collect for the state hours for boat patrol and this.
Jerry, that's not true. I'm sorry.
Well,
You know,
you look at the revenues,
we
it
manpower
shows
to
we
put out
didn't
there.
get it.
This man right here has worked his heart out for this county.
Okay,
He
okay.
had,
We're not going to solve this
Larry, I
tonight.
realize-
We need to move on.
I'm sorry, we'll do it.
We are willing to work with you anytime that you want. I know that the county manager has reached out to you. He will continue to reach out to you whenever you're ready to come to the table.
Larry, I have to come to the table. Hold on, don't cut me off, please, sir, because you do know the
Okay, you
truth.
got 2 minutes.
I have been,
Then we're done.
I have been to the table, I have been on the phone, I'm available anytime, I'm at that office. Okay? There's nothing more that I can do. There's nothing more. Okay? I have done everything you've asked of me. Everything.
There is a lot more you could do. You could compromise. So, you got really 30 seconds left.
Okay, well, no, I compromise constantly.
I do have a question. Now, I was the chair of your committee when we got the SRO positions. that correct?
Yes, sir.
And during that conversation in that committee, the SROs were going to be funded for a full-time position, and part of that position was going to be used for the Parks and Rec.
Yes, sir.
So if we have those, what are they doing now if they're not doing Parks and Rec?
They'll be going to road patrol. To fill in the gaps in my road patrol too as well.
Now, sure, I know we funded quite a few positions for road patrol.
No, it's after public misled. No, we didn't. Nobody, we're still at 13 deputies. That's it. You put 5 new people.
When we brought you up, you asked me specifically to bring you up to what the previous sheriff had.
13 of us.
And that's what you requested, and we did it.
But just so you know, no, I requested at that point, then that year, yes, that's all you told me, that's what I was told I could do. I asked, I want the community to know this, I asked for a 2-2-2 program last year. I asked them to put on 2 deputies one year, 2 deputies another year, and 2 deputies another year, over a 3-year period. That way it wouldn't cost the county a lot of money like it did a few years back, about 3 years ago, when I put 5 deputies on at a large expense. And that was to catch up the retirees and people who were promoted. I still have positions that are not covered because people were promoted to other things that I'm not being allowed to fill because of the budget. There's no more, the public knows, you know, I know, I'm open. We need some money. I need some help. When this large building on top of the hill calls for help up there, they get it every time. Thank goodness they do. I'm glad they do. I'm glad you find it.
Sure.
Now, your sheriff's agencies believe that they need help.
I can't sit here and listen to that hospital.
Sure you can.
The hospital is a fund that makes their money. We don't give the hospital any money anymore, Sheriff. They charge for their services and they make money. The hospital has a lot of money in the bank. We are doing just a mechanical law thing by approving the spots for the hospital. We don't put that budget and pay that money out of taxpayers.
Well,
the hospital makes their own money.
Yeah, I'll say this, fine. My Parks and Rec can make their own money then too, right?
It can, and that's my confusion. Why isn't the Parks and Rec, you can take in $200,000 that we're told, and you agreed to that you could. So did Mike. Why don't you have a plan to put those people in the Parks and Recs and take care of these lakes? Everybody up here wants the lakes taken care of.
We had that plan.
And it'll be reimbursed.
We had the plan, it was going well until I was told I was spending the overtime money and they had no place to cover it coming up. So they told me to go find some place to cover it. This is the only place I can take from, Dick.
If you spend the money on the Parks and Recs now, it will come back to you 100% in your budget before year end.
No. I'm going to stop.
It will come back.
I've spoken to you for 8 years and given you information for 8 years. You don't listen to it. You've had paperwork. You've had emails. You've had handouts. Like the county manager asked me now this one. Put things on paper, we do it. Come on. Thank you for my time.
So, Sheriff, I have one question, and you know that I understand the Corrections Act, but we're going to go back when we approved you to backfill 5 positions. There was 1 investigator, and I do believe there was 4 road patrol that you hadn't filled for close to a year. So my question to you is, and this is where my question is, why is there so much overtime now on the road side compared to what it was when you were down 5 staff? Explain that to me.
You're at the same level. You never went up. It's the same level.
I know, but you were short. You had 4 to 5 open positions that people were in at one time, and your overtime wasn't at what it is now. That's my question for you, to help me understand where you're coming from. Like I said, I understand the corrections because I work there. There's a lot of uncontrolled, unforeseen stuff that you don't have any control over. I understand that. But the roadside, how is it that our overtime is so high when you're back up to the level that Sheriff Taball had when I worked there at 13, when you were down 2 or 3 years ago, you were down an investigator and 4 road patrols that you hadn't filled. And they were funded, they were in your budget, and you did not fill them right off.
No, we did, because now we're doing what we call proper hiring practices.
I understand that.
I now give a lie detector and a polygraph exam and a psychological background when we hire new people.
And
never been done before in the sheriff's department.
And that's fine. I think you should give them a drug test too, but we don't do that. But help me understand that part. I mean, that's the part that I don't understand. You know, if I'm running a business and I'm short 3 people with no overtime, and then I hire 3 people to fill the position, I got a whole bunch of overtime.
Right.
It's like, I want to take a look at that, and it's helped me understand that.
I will. I can bring you more to you. Like I said, right in the middle of doing several narcotics things that we have going on, narcotics costs. To do my narcotics unit costs money. I told you, I took from the road, that's where I had to take it from, to make a narcotics unit. And we're putting a pretty good dent so far, we're doing a pretty good job.
No one's ever argued with
I
you
know
that
that.
you're doing a good job with what you have.
That's where the money's going, so that's where we're trying to do some of these things, that's all. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Larry and Lady.
Presentation and communications and notices, Terry, please.
A letter of thanks was received from the Youth Bureau Director Penny Mosier for the approved county appropriation to support the upcoming Lewis County Night Out. The U.S. Board on Geographic Names has officially named the waterfall on Black Creek in the town of New Bremen as Dickup Falls, in association with the nearby unincorporated community of Dickup's Corner, the historical Dickup School, and for the Dickup family who have lived in the area since 1861. In response to the sheriff's recent announcement to terminate enforcement patrols, Branningham Community Association officers Philip Stark and Karen Murphy urged that as the sheriff and legislators work to solve the budget issues, they avoid taking a clear shot at our tourism industry. The board acknowledges receipt of resolutions enacted by the Columbia and Livingston County legislatures opposing New York State legislation that undermines the careful balance that exists for the tax foreclosure process by changing the order in which multiple tax liens are to be redeemed. Also from the Essex County legislature opposing enactment of the Farm Workers Fair Labor Practices Act that expands their benefits and rights. And that concludes presentation of communications.
Thank you, Terry. Reports of county officers and departments.
Legislators have each received copies of the June Treasurer's Report, the second quarter bed tax report, and highway and solid waste audit reports. Also, minutes of the June 19 Youth Bureau Advisory Board meeting. James Richmeyer has submitted his May Sealer of Weights and Measures activity report that was placed on file in my office. And that concludes.
Thank you. Reports of standing committees. Brian, Finance and Rules, please.
Nothing really to report. As you know, we had applications for solid waste and for HR, so we've been busy with interviews. Both committees have, and everyone that's been involved. I'd like to thank everyone that's been involved. Other than that, I really don't have anything else to report.
Any questions for Brian?
I have a motion.
Okay.
I have a motion to award SimQuest of Burlington, Vermont, a 5-year county agreement for multifunctional printer copier equipment pursuant to their 6/8/2019 low bid proposal for an annual cost of $31,098. The amount represents a 2% increase over the expiring agreement that is locked in for 5 years.
Moved by Brian, second by John. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Brian. Jerry, General Services Committee, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got a bunch of motions to do tonight, so I'll get started on those. Motion to correct the dates in the agreement approved by resolution number 19, 2019 with Bar Peters Events LLC to use the county reforestation lands in the towns of Linesdale for annual Peak and Brew relay race. And it goes from August 9th and 10th, 2019.
Moved by Jerry, second by Ron. Discussion?
I do have one question. Is that, if they're using it, do they provide insurance like the other ones, or
Yes.
is that a requirement? Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Okay, a motion to reject the sole bid received for the repointing of the brick on the courthouse and public safety building and authorize rebidding of the project this fall.
Moved by Jerry, second by Tom. Discussion?
If we don't do that until this fall, the work will start in the spring?
Yeah.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Motion to authorize Highway Superintendent Warren Shaw to refill 2 mechanic/welder's position effective immediately due to a retirement and a resignation.
Moved by Jerry, second by Andrew. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
A motion to authorize District Attorney Leanne Mosier to refill a full-time assistant district attorney's position effective immediately due to resignation.
Moved by Jerry, second by Tom. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Okay, I'll make this motion too, and then we'll have a discussion, because we're going to have questions. A motion to amend the agreement in the amount previously approved for drilling the well at Singing Waters from $8,850 to an amount not to exceed $19,870. And what essentially has happened is...
Wait, hold it. Moved by Jerry, second by Greg. Now we can have discussion.
Okay, sorry. You're going to have questions what the difference is. Essentially, they got down to a certain depth, not to agree, and no water in sight. So they kept going, and they ended up to get the required amount of water we need at 600 feet. They've got good water, supposedly. They're testing it out. But if we'd have been down with the original one and turned around and walked away, we'd have sunk that in a dry hole. So what they're wanting to do is transfer that difference out of the grant we got that allow them to transfer into this account, and they'll do a little bit less, or some of the projects they had listed in the grant will not be done. So it's in that grant, it's not additional cost to us.
Jackie, you have any comments?
This is all part of the DASNY grant that we got through Senator Grippo's office. The original site plan had the well at the bottom within the picnic area. The Department of Health said it's too close, we'd have to have a waiver, and then there would be no guarantee that the waiver would hold if they change regulations. So we agreed to move the well site farther up the hill, farther away from the picnic area, and because of it, there's a 250-foot elevation change. So it's that much more drilling that we had to do. Not that we were guaranteed the depth that he estimated it at in the contract. So that's where the difference is. We have a 600-foot well. That's what he submitted his bill for. But as part of the grant, the budget can be amended. We just will do less project at the site.
So just to clarify one thing, this is a not to exceed number, and it's subject to negotiation with the well driller, correct?
Yeah, see if we can
Yes.
do better.
Any further discussion? Questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
And I got some resolutions we'll discuss as we go through, and this is me. I'd just like to apologize to Mr. Kerr for the hospital being drugged into it. He shouldn't have been. So I think they're doing a great job.
Thank you, Jerry.
Yep.
Any questions for Jerry? Move on to Greg with Health and Human Services Committee, please.
The only thing I have tonight, Mr. Chairman, is some motions. Motion to authorize Public Health Director Ashley Week to refill a full-time public health nurse due to retirement.
Moved by Greg, second by Dick. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
And I also have a motion to have Public Health Director Ashley Waite refill a per diem registered professional nurse.
Moved by Greg, second by Tom. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
That's right, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for Greg? Thank you, Greg. Dick, the board's rep on the hospital board.
Sure. The employee of the month for May is Wesley Brown, a CNA, and as you see Wesley around the hospital, please congratulate. Mrs. Prince briefed us on a recent scabies. It's SCABIES, because I thought it was spelled a little differently and I was corrected. It developed in the nursing home back in June. Some notable things that we were briefed on is that they performed a deep clean, that's a clinical term, I guess, it's in parentheses, of the entire nursing home. We laundered all the residents' clothing and furniture, and we noted that the nursing home staff worked diligently so we would experience another event. Those involved up front in working overtime, Eileen Carroll, Jackie Simmons, Neva Bossard, Neil Turk, Karen Albertine. Excellent job pulling everyone together in handling this event. We also worked with the New York State Department of Health to be sure that we're compliant. The next up, the hospital budget had a gain of $38,063 as opposed to a budget gain of $6,807. So contrary to what may have been applied earlier, the hospital does have a year-to-date surplus budget and is paying all their bills on time. Lewis County Hospital Foundation had a golf committee and a golf tournament, and they raised $26,000 on Friday, June 7th. Greg asked me the other night, just before this meeting, about the chairs and furnitures on the circle where there's a little place to sit. The winter was not kind to us, and it's raised havoc with the tiles in there, so all the furniture's been removed. The tiles, we have a contractor coming in, I think next Monday to start replacing those tiles and stuff. And then we have $13,000 in proceeds to help revitalize, and we call that the Adirondack Edge. So, in answer to your question, that should be fixed by mid-July.
Well, why did they do it in sections? Could have done half and half.
It's all
That way people could have still utilized
tiles
it.
laid down,
I saw how they're laid
so
down.
you pick them up, you re-tamp, you re-push this, and put them back down. And
If
Jerry,
they could have done half and half.
Jerry, you may have another thing.
And the reason for that is we're actually pulling up all the pavers, pulling up the gravel, putting new drainage, so that way that doesn't happen again in the future.
So those of you who don't know, this is Jerry Kaler. He's the CEO of the hospital with us tonight, answering
It was a freeze-thaw thing, is what we're understanding it. So the water didn't drain correctly out of there when it was first put in. Now we're fixing it, so this time it won't be under there to pop up.
Could you still have done it half and half, half, then when you've done that half, you move the furniture over so they can still utilize it. It's the only outside area that's really utilizable up there. So, I mean, you could have done it, planned it better, I guess.
So we did have a review with our safety officer, and so that's the balance. So I appreciate your point, and that's why we're hustling to get it done, so that it is used, before the long winter leaves.
And the last thing we have is, I think we all know that mow-down is coming up, and the hospital ED department has been participating in all the briefings on that, and we have a plan to handle whatever comes up that week. That, and any questions concludes my report.
Any questions for Dick? Any further comments, Jerry?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dick.
I guess.
County manager report, Ryan?
If it's all the same with you, I think we've kind of discussed what I've been up to enough.
Rather intense. We can leave it at that. County treasurer report, Patty, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have your balances for the month. Special legislative contingency is $96,942. Regular contingency is $189,475. Capital data processing is $61,844.91. Capital equipment Highway portion is $61,351.30. County portion, $297,776.84. Sales tax to date is $4,796,586.14, and we are on budget. And internal service fund, we have a fund balance of $4,691,598.35. We had a slight loss in April. And that's all I have. If anybody has any questions.
Questions for Patty?
The internal service fund has been running just about that, plus or minus 100,000.
Right, right.
We saw a drop in sales tax in April. It's minus 52.
Right, yes.
Remember when the snort run was? That was a complete increase with all that extra 6,000 wheelers running around.
That one
You
show up.
don't have the second quarter, do you have the second quarter yet?
Well, it's through May. It's through May. These figures are through May.
And what about the bed tax, Patty?
You want to know what that's at right now?
Isn't there 11 delinquent?
When we say they're delinquent, it just means that they might not have turned their last report in, so it's not critical. It's just that they
How many
didn't
are
turn.
actually critical then?
Well, actually, I don't think we have any critical ones anymore. Yep, yep.
Thanks, Patty.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Patty.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Report of the Finance and Rules Committee per Rule 7, Terry.
The Finance and Rules Committee reports they've examined the claims presented for payment in the total amount of $814,922.80 and recommend the audited and allowed for the amounts claimed.
Need a motion? Moved by Ron, second by John. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
First resolution is auditing and allowing the claims in the amount of $814,922.80.
Moved by Jerry, second by Brian. Discussion? Roll call, Terry, please.
Burns. Chartrand.
Yes.
King.
Yes.
Causer.
Yes.
LaChaux.
Yes.
Lehman.
Yes.
Mowerham.
Yes.
Mosier.
Yes.
Osborne.
Yes.
Dahlhoff.
Yes.
Yep, introductory local law number 1, installment payment of real property, town and county taxes in Lewis County. Resolution 213 is to adopt that local law number 2.
So moved by Brian, second by
Do we need to close the hearing? Which one?
Jerry.
Yes.
We did.
Okay.
We did. Discussion?
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Jerry.
Jerry, thank you.
I have a question right here on section 4, item C, town participation. I thought we agreed that we would pick up software program systems for the towns on into the future, not just for the first 2 years of operation.
If I could be heard on that, Mr. Chairman, I don't think that we finalized how long it would go because we wouldn't know what the costs were. So I think the committee wanted to have the discretion to look at it in a couple of years and decide whether or not,
Was that in the minutes, Joe?
What's that?
Was that in the minutes?
I don't know if that was.
I don't believe it was.
Yeah, I don't know.
So is that something you came up with, or?
No, I remember the discussion, Greg.
I think it was more than 2 years.
So,
We were looking at 5 years out.
We talked about 2 years, and, even if we have to draw a line somewhere, so if we put it at 2 years and there's a hardship case, I'm sure we can review that at that time and allow it, I think, if we need to, right, Joan?
Yeah, you can amend it or pass a resolution to continue to fund it for another 2, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever the county decides at that time.
Because I think in that discussion, Greg, we talked about, along with this, is that the future board re-looking at maybe different type of installments too. If I remember right, that was all in that same
Oh,
discussion.
yeah, but that was in that discussion, but I remember hearing 5 years. But of course.
Mr. Chairman, if I could add something.
Go ahead.
The 2 years reflects the current deal that was put on the table by Systems East, the carrier. After, this initial startup, if other towns want to join, they don't get the group rate. So we tied our reimbursement with them getting the group rate.
Going now.
Thank you.
John, the way I'm reading this, we don't need another resolution. It says at our discretion, we can just keep this one.
Right, but any action that you would take to pay anything, you would do by resolution.
Right. Okay.
Any further comments? All in favor?
It's a roll call vote.
Okay, sorry.
Burns,
Aye.
Chartran,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Coulter,
Yes.
LaChose,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Mauerham,
Yes.
Mosher,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Dahlhoff.
Yes.
214 is setting a public hearing on local law amending and restating the establishment of a Lewis County trail system. And you will all get the finalized local law no later than July 26th.
We will discuss this in the General Services Committee meeting, the finalized law.
Moved by Jerry, second by Randy. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Amend and adopt the standing rules of the Board of Legislators for the next 6 months.
Moved by Andrea, second by John, excuse me. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Setting enforcement hearing date pursuant to local law number 2 of 2007, unsafe buildings law for Marshy Road in the town of Diana for August 6th.
Moved by Jerry, second by Randy. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing agreement with ABJ Fire Protection Company for sprinklers and backflow.
Moved by,
Backflow. Sorry, couldn't get that out.
we good now? Moved by Jerry, second by Andrea. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Increasing district attorney's salary pursuant to New York State budget mandate and judiciary law.
Moved by Jerry, second by Tom. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Show Randy and Andrea opposed. I'm in favor. Motion carries.
To transfer funds, elections.
Moved by Dick, second by Brian. Discussion.
Their lease of these, is this the
No.
lease payment?
We bought them those.
No, we leased them.
No.
Lease with
No.
purchase price.
What's that?
And that was a finance deal.
Was it a fine?
It is a finance
Yeah,
deal,
but
yes.
over time. it's-
Yeah, we chose the 8-year
Yeah,
option.
we own them, right.
But is this the finance part,
I do believe that this is the
The
finance end of it, yes.
the payment price?
Yes, because the financing was over what we had budgeted for coming in here, because originally we were only gonna replace a couple at a time, remember that?
Right,
And then we ended up
finance.
going financing and get all of them. So this is to cover that over on the next.
And then next year we'll be increased by.
That,
Yep. We have been doing $10,000 a year with the thought that we would like to get into a rotation system. And then we had the whole discussion, but we ended up obviously doing something different, so the budget didn't match up quite perfectly.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Following calling on the governor and the Department of Homeland Security for interoperable communication to set aside sufficient 911 funding to counties in order to properly maintain existing systems and become compliant with federal FCC funding options.
Moved by Jerry, second by Ron. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Authorizing implementation of the bridge replacement project over Moose Creek.
Moved by Randy, second by Tom. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Amending compensation plan with reference to the hospital.
Moved by Jerry, second by Andrea. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Amending compensation to authorize position reclassification in Office for the Aging.
Moved by John, second by Tom. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Appropriate funds, Office for the Aging.
Moved by Randy, second by Tom. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Authorizing agreement and acceptance of grant award from New York State Department of Ag and Markets.
Moved by John, second by Jerry. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
To appropriate funds, Planning Department.
Moved by Jerry, second by Randy. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Authorizing an MOU between the Department of Rec and Forestry with BOCES internship program.
Moved by Tom, second by Brian. Discussion.
We've done this in the past.
Jackie?
Yes.
Yes.
All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Authorizing closeout agreements and final payments with E.F. Johnson Technologies for emergency communications radio system.
I think you have to make this motion, Jerry.
I'll second.
Moved by Greg, second by
I want to second Jerry.
second by Dick. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed?
I
Carries.
gotta say, Jerry, you did good. You put a lot of time
You gotta
into
do
it,
it.
so.
Might be honored.
Authorizing discharge of mortgage, Pilecki.
Moved by Tom, second by Randy. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Appropriate funds, social services.
Moved by Dick, second by Jerry. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Establishing and adopting payment and credit policies for Lewis County solid waste recycling and transfer stations.
Moved by John, second by Tom. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Appropriate funds, stop DWI program.
Moved by Jerry, second by Ron. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Authorizing agreement between the county and EFPR Group, auditing services.
Moved by Brian, second by Jerry. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 234 is your late resolution, amending compensation with reference to Lewis County General Hospital for athletic training.
Moved by Dick, second by Tom. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing agreement between Office for Aging and Open Sky Wellness.
Moved by Andrea, second by Jerry. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And I will abstain. Motion carries.
Appointing Director of Lewis County Solid Waste Management, Kip Turk.
Moved by Andrea, second by Jerry. Discussion?
He's going to be a supervisor up there now, right?
Correct.
Is he still the union?
You'll have to move to-
I thought so, I just asked him.
you'll have to move to management, so I would assume you'll have to give that position up, won't you?
It's already done.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to, it didn't say that here. Good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. Before we adjourn, can I have 10 minutes of the board's time for a personnel matter?
Certainly.
Congratulations. I just forgot about one thing. Ashley, can you stay? Sorry.
Okay, is there any other business that we want to accomplish before we go into executive session? If not, motion. Jerry, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I just would like to share that in light of tonight's, this evening's conversation, the hospital employs nearly 700 individuals. Our economic impact to Lewis County is $114 million. During my tenure, we have exceeded budget goals each year. And it's also worth noting, we are the largest provider of health insurance in Lewis County. So I just want to offer that and thank you for your ongoing support.
Thank you. Thank you,
We recognize the value and we apologize for dragging you into that discussion. Motion for executive session? Second by Jerry. 5-minute recess and then we'll be in executive session.